Let's make a cup of coffee so we can reach the right amount of jittery to do this freakout tag. It's actually been such a lovely reading year so far. I've read tons of books that I've absolutely loved and very few that I didn't enjoy. And I've been having a lot of fun with my reading journal, trying out different types of spreads. So today we'll start with a flip through of my reading journal, then I'll answer the mid-year freakout tag questions and talk stats a little bit. I've been getting some questions about how I come up with my reading journal spreads because I like to do a different one for each book that I read, and so I thought that I would talk about that for a little bit while we flip through. My setup for 2024 is dark academia themed, and for this I just started to look up a bunch of academia infrastructure elements such as pillars, windows, ornaments, things like that, and then collected my favorite ones and worked with those key shapes. I like to stick to a limited number of color and shapes so it looks more coherent, and also because it takes quite some time to draw all of those, so it's easier once you get the hang of it to replicate. As usual, I've been drawing a lot of flower patterns, and while I incorporate them in different ways, in different spreads, a lot of these come back later because once I like a certain shape of flower or the pattern, the way the pattern looks, I often use it again but in a different way. I think flowers and floral patterns are so versatile. There are few, if any, book spreads that I wouldn't be able to use them for, because you can play around a lot with the style, the color, the size, etc. It's kind of a fun exercise figuring out which flowers and how they would fit with that book. I also sometimes get inspired by the environment of the book. For example, for This Is Happiness, which is set in Ireland, I really wanted to create a rainy, gloomy watercolor painting. I'm not exactly a painter, but I don't think it really matters for journaling because it's just nice to have this extra element and layer to your spreads. Sometimes I get inspired by something really random. I bought Franny and Zoe in a bookstore that was completely decorated in baby blue elements, and so somehow that's also how I created the book spread for it, because that is a color palette I thought of when I thought of this book. Some of these explanations are definitely not going to make much sense, so apologies for that. When I don't really know what to do for a book, which often happens when a book has been fine but not necessarily brought me a ton of excitement or inspiration, my go-to is these large-ish shapes, and I just try to pick one and pick colors that somehow mirror the vibe of the book still. Like these cute, innocent-looking flowers in blue for a book like Everything, or then these more complex and intricate ones in darker colors for celestial bodies. Other times it all starts with the font. This is definitely also a way to figure out a spread if I'm stuck, because sometimes I'll have an idea in my head of what I want the font to look like. For example, with A Burning, it was a lot about media, and I wanted to have the title in this old newspaper style, and everything just kind of went from there. With The Wicked Deep, I wanted to have some sort of nautical vibe to it, and so I started from there, and then drew shapes around it that fit this theme. Let me know if you want a more in-depth video of how I come up with my reading journal spreads, because I think that might be a fun video to do as well. I think I can break it down into steps or kind of explain a bit more clearly how I find ideas, whether inside the book or outside, and how I translate them into the eventual journal spreads. It's definitely not an exact science, but I do feel like I have a sort of process after a couple of years of doing it. So let me know if that's something you would be interested in. So now let's go through the mid-year freak-out questions. First up is the best book I've read so far, which is difficult because I've read so many good ones, but I think I will have to go for This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. Such gorgeous writing, such a memorable story, and such an idyllic setting. I loved it so much. I can't answer which is the best sequel I've read so far because I've read none, which is worrying because I do have a few series going on. But I would predict that the sequel to Scythe will be my favorite by the end of this year. But I also want to read the next books in the Farseer trilogy, and I want to continue the Seven Sisters as well. A new release I haven't read yet but want to is Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abike-Yimide. It came out in March, but it's definitely not out where I live, so I have to wait a little bit longer, or maybe try to pick it up when I'm traveling home. I'm not sure if I can get a copy yet in Belgium, but I will definitely try. I just really loved Ace of Spades, and I have this feeling that I will enjoy whatever this author writes, yet to be confirmed, but I have a hunch. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year is going to be a very basic answer. It is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I'm just really curious after Beautiful World, Where Are You, to see how her writing will evolve further. My biggest disappointment would have to be Celestial Bodies, just because I was really interested in the setting and the plot, but the writing just wasn't for me. It's set in Oman. We follow three sisters who all choose a very different path of love and marriage, and I was so intrigued, but it just didn't do it for me. I could also talk about Earthlings here, but I've said all there is to say in my wrap-up video that month, so let's move on. Biggest surprise is definitely Now Go on Grief and Studio Ghibli. I just picked it up because I thought it would be interesting to dissect Studio Ghibli a bit further, and to be honest, I will watch or read just about anything related to Studio Ghibli, so I hadn't expected the writing to be so beautiful and to resonate so much with some of the conclusions of this book, so that was definitely the biggest surprise. Favorite new author, debut or new to you, would have to be Mary Oliver. I finally got back into poetry thanks to Mary Oliver. I just love how this author focuses on the beauty of the mundane and of nature, and it just fills me with so much warmth and joy. There are not that many contenders for newest fictional crush. It's going to be Kenan from As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. It's such a wholesome romance that I think I just have a crush on their love story, to be honest. And while we're on As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, I'm afraid it's also the answer to the following two questions: book that made you cry and book that made you happy. Although I definitely also got a lot of joy from This Is Happiness, Now Go, and Devotions. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? I haven't bought many books this year at all, and I don't want to give away my whole upcoming TBR, which I will talk about in my next video. So I just want to show you this kind of random book I picked up in the children's section of the bookstore. It had been a very long time since I picked up a book that I didn't over-research, but this cover drew me to it for some reason. It's The Valley of Lost Secrets by Leslie Parr. I haven't read any reviews. I don't think it's a very popular book. I'll talk about it more in my next video, as well as the other books I plan to read soon. The final question is, what books do you need to read by the end of this year? Well, we have this pile of to read or to give away books that I made early this year. At this point, it's become pretty clear that it's unrealistic to expect myself to read all of these by the end of this year. I have 13 left, which would mean more than 2 each month, which is just not going to happen because there are a lot of other books that I still want to read, but I will try to see how many I can read from this pile. It's definitely been helpful to have it here out in the open. It somehow has made me read a lot more of my physical TBR, but not necessarily of this particular pile. And let's also look at the stats because they also have something to say about the books I should be reading for the rest of the year. So far I've read 24 books, which is kind of average for me. I'm happy with that. What I'm a bit more concerned about is my moods according to the story graph. My top ones being emotional, reflective, sad, and dark. I've read 2 books that are classified as inspiring, 2 hopeful, 2 funny, and 1 relaxing. So I think we need to balance out this mood distribution a little bit. I don't think this is always 100% accurate, but it's definitely not completely wrong either. No surprises when it comes to pace, which I always read mostly medium pace books. Same with page number, mid-range as usual, and I am managing to keep up 25% non-fiction, which is right where I want it. When I was drawing out the genre stats, I was surprised that I have in fact read 3 memoirs already, which is a lot for me, but I've actually really enjoyed them, and I'm currently reading 1 more, which is also really interesting. I think otherwise it's been a regular reading time, mostly literary contemporary, some young adult, some romance, some fantasy. I do want to get up my classics a bit. I've not read a lot of those this year so far. Same with sci-fi, for which I really need your recommendations because I enjoy sci-fi, but I don't know how to pick them because they feel so remote for me for some reason. So that was my mid-year check-in. Let me know in the comments what your reading year has been like so far. What were your favorite or least favorite books? What books do you still really want to read by the end of this year? Let me know your thoughts. I always love hearing from you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.